welcome to my YouTube channel and blog. I'm Jenny Hall. Thanks for joining me for another card making tutorial. Today is video number 2 in the Fancy Fold card making series. I'm going to be making a Z-fold card, and the look that I was trying to achieve is that of the chalkboard sign in a coffee house. So I wanted to get that blackboard chalkboard look. Here is the Z-fold. I'm going to be using craft cardstock for my card base, and the craft cardstock comes in sheets of 12 by 12. I'm going to cut the card base down to 5.5 by 10 inches. After it's cut down to that, then we'll start scoring. The first score is going to be at 4.25, and then I flipped it around and scored it to 2 inches. What this is going to allow is you're going to have your standard 4.25 by 5.5, and then we're going to have this flap that is going to fold back, and it's going to expose some of the inside of the card to be seen on the outside. When making any fancy fold cards, I would highly suggest that you use a bone folder or a Teflon folder and burnish your score lines. Turn them back upon themselves and give yourself as much reinforcement into the fold as possible. I'm going to do some heat embossing for this card, and I wanted to get a different kind of a look. So I'm mixing together gold embossing powder and Emerald Envy green glitter embossing powder. That's a mouthful. To achieve the heat embossing, I first am going to use the embossing buddy, and I coated that, and that's going to keep the sticky ink embossing powder from sticking to the places of my card. It takes care of all the oils from my hands. I'm using Versamark ink, which stays sticky, and it'll hold that embossing powder in place in order for me to heat set it. So this is going to be a different look to the embossing. It's not completely green and it's not completely gold. I wanted to have it mix equally and tried to put equal amounts so that I could get an even looking tone. The stamp set I'm using is Christmas Pines, and I like the way that the pine branches are open, and so it makes it nice whenever I can put more than one stamp next to each other, and it doesn't look out of place. It looks very natural, and I like that about that. The first little cup of, and this is just a little bathroom cup that I'm using, but the first batch of the embossing powder that I mixed up got completely used. I didn't expect for it to use that much of it, but it did. So I mixed up a little bit more, and now I'm working on the inside panel of the card. So my card base is made from craft cardstock, and then the panels are made from basic black. I'm going to have this green gold look that's going to be extremely shiny. It's going to look one way when you face it, and then when you turn it into the light and the light catches it, it's going to look it's going to have a different shine to it. This is a fun way to play with your embossing powders. Try mixing up your gold and silver sometime and just see what the results are, just for fun. And maybe you'll find a new way that you like to do some kind of heat embossing. It's fun to play. I'm taking one of the stamps that is from Christmas Pines, and it's just a little row of almost hearts and almost just it looks to me like a Scandinavian type of design, but it's in a straight line, and I am putting that along the right hand side of this panel, and it's going to show through to the very front of the card since we have that piece that's folded back upon itself. So I'm going to heat emboss this at the same time, and now is when you'll get to see the magic happen with the heat embossing. If you can see here that it kind of turns a little bit more green, and then the gold is just mixed in with it, and I find that it is very beautiful. This is the look that I was hoping to get, but I kind of wish that it would be a little bit more sparkly green, like some of the glitter and the green glitter embossing powder would have it would have just stayed a little bit more green. However, I am really happy with the result. I'm sorry that this video is sped up. It's at 4 times its speed, but without me speeding it up, it was 20 minutes long, and I try not to allow my videos to go that long because we all have lives that we want to get back to after watching a video. So here is how I came about making the sentiment for the card. I like this sentiment, and it goes straight from left to right, but I don't have the space on this card to put the sentiment in this direction. So what I chose to do was divide up the stamp and make it go up and down to fit this little folded back upon it flap. I wanted to use the marker to isolate each letter at a time, but the marker did not lend itself as well to the stamp as the ink pad did. So I thought this would be a great time for me to give an example of, if you have a stamp that you like and you want to try to repurpose it, then this is a wonderful way for you to be able to use it in, in a different fashion. Like going from horizontal to vertical is not something that it would always come to mind to be able to just completely make the direction of a stamp go a different way. I could use my scissors and cut the stamp, but I didn't want to do that on this set because I like the way it's already laid out. The one piece of advice I have whenever trying to use a stamp, like isolating just an area of a stamp, doing this, is I'm using sticky notes to cover up the letters. Just my advice is to make sure that you get those sticky notes back off before you stamp down to the card. I have done this before, and I'll be honest with you, I sometimes would forget to pull the sticky note off, and the sticky note has ink on it. So this is a great way to repurpose a tool that you already have as much as a stamp, and just make sure you pull off those little spare colored sticky notes. I'm attaching the panel of this black panel to the card with liquid glue because I wanted it to really be able to line it up right. And sometimes when I use snail adhesive, then I don't get enough of an extra chance. I also am using the embossing buddy to go over the edges of the card, and that will allow me to get that chalkboard look because it's a white bag and it leaves behind a residue, and that looks like chalk. So this is a fancy fold card, and it's also the chalkboard technique. So here you'll see that I'm just going over the outside of it, and it creates almost like a halo effect. I am not putting a sentiment on the inside of the card because I want to allow room for a greeting. I do want to put a piece of gold twine just on that folded back part in order to bring the eye all the way through around the card. I felt like the panel itself was a little plain, and I am going to go over it with a little holly stamp on the edge of the folded back panel. I'm adding a little bit of snail adhesive because my twine I was a little generous with the knot, so I'm just kind of trying to train it to behave itself. Thank you guys for joining me for another video tutorial. I hope you like this series. Here is a picture of the inside and the outside of the card. That way you can get a good look, and you'll see that nice shine on the embossing powder. I invite you to jump over to my blog at jennystampsup.com, and there you'll find a brand new card making idea every day. While there, I invite you to subscribe to my blog, and when doing so, you'll receive an email directly into your email box every day with my card project. Thanks again.
Thanks for watching the video. See you next time.